as we have discussed already. The 4 stages of the stack consist out of 2 pairs. Each pair does consist out of an immanent part and a transcendent part. The immanent and transcendent part of each pair do engage with one another. This engagement is grounded in exactly 2 factors. The one factor of engagement are shapes. On the one side, the disorderly shape of the transcendent part, and on the other side, the orderly shape of the immanent part during the variation of the primary disorder, meaning the cavity within the hyperspace. The primary order is being created as well. It is the very disorder, meaning the inwardly curved bend of the cavity, that caused the creation of the orderly counterpart, which is being manifested by the adjacent primary order, meaning disorder creates order, not order disorder. In that sense, the disorder of the primary disorder of the first stage is leading, while the order of the second stage is following. It is the very curve, and therefore the momentary change of both the disorder of the first stage and the order of the second stage that causes the primary order to adhere to the primary disorder. The adhesion of the primary order to the primary disorder does occur across the gap of the third moment in between both. The gap of the third moment in between the first stage and the second stage of the stack is to be understood as the very manifestation of nothingness, or as the absence of any medium, meaning the distinct relationship between disorder and order of the transcendent pair does not necessitate the existence of a mediating medium in between. The second factor of engagement that exists between the upper part and the inferior part of each pair are gradients. The upper part, or the transcendent part, does manifest an exogenous character, while the immanent part of each pair does manifest an endogenous character. The best way to describe the exogenous character of the superior part of each pair is as an entity that is giving, while the endogenous attribute or character of the immanent part of each pair can be understood as an entity that is taking, because both characters are of complementarily opposite nature and complement one another and are directly juxtaposed. A gradient in between both characters occurs. In that sense, the primary disorder, or the first stage of the stack, does manifest an exogenous character, while the directly adjacent inferior second stage, also known as primary order, does manifest an endogenous character. Because both characters complement one another, the gradient in between the primary order and primary disorder causes the primary order to adhere to the primary disorder. Alternatively, to the adhesion that occurs due to the direct juxtaposition of the disorderly and orderly shape. These 2 factors of engagement do not just apply to the upper pair, meaning the first and second stage of the stack, but also to the lower pair, meaning the third as well as the fourth stage. The third stage as the secondary disorder, and the fourth stage, which is the secondary order. Unlike the engagement of the primary disorder and primary order, the engagement of the secondary order and the secondary disorder does occur across a greater distance. As you can see here, the secondary disorder is placed right in the center of what is called the gap. The gap is the very distance in between the secondary order and the primary order. Because the secondary disorder is placed right in between the primary order and secondary order, a direct engagement of the secondary order with the primary order is impossible. The only way for the secondary order to engage with the primary order is through secondary disorder that is placed right in between both. The 4 stages of the stack that are being shown here do appear as circles, as a simplification. In reality, all 4 stages of the stack do appear as spheres. These spheres are not 3-dimensional, they are 2-dimensional, because the secondary disorder, or the third stage, is placed right in between the secondary order and the primary order, making a direct engagement between the secondary order and the primary order impossible. It itself inevitably functions as a mediator between both orders. Because the secondary disorder, or the third stage of the stack, is placed right in the center of the gap, it separates the gap in between the primary order and secondary order in 2 halves. On the one side, the lower half of the gap, and on the other side, the upper half of the gap. Both halves of the gap have the same size because the secondary disorder is placed in the very center of the gap.